My name is Arthur, and I never expected that a simple adventure could spiral into a nightmare. At 20, my life was driven by a sense of curiosity and a passion for exploring the unknown. It was the summer of 2022 when I first heard whispers about the Crooked Forest in Poland. This peculiar grove, with its trees bent at an odd angle, captivated my imagination. What could have caused such a strange phenomenon? I needed to find out. My friends warned me. "It's just a forest," they said, their laughter mingling with the summer breeze. What's so special about it? But it wasn't just a forest. It was an enigma, a piece of nature that beckoned to those brave enough to investigate. Ignoring their warnings, I packed my gear, loaded my camera, and set off alone, excitement coursing through my veins. As I arrived, I was greeted by the serene beauty of the forest. The air was crisp and clean, a stark contrast to the chaos of my daily life. I felt a strange pull as I walked among the twisted trees, their gnarled trunks reaching out like the fingers of lost souls. I snapped pictures, documenting my adventure with each step deeper into the grove. But beneath the calm surface, an unsettling feeling crept in, an instinctive warning I chose to ignore. It was late afternoon when I stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood an ancient stone altar, overgrown with moss and weeds, its surface etched with strange symbols. My heart raced. I had uncovered something significant. This was not just a forest, but a place where history and mystery intertwined. I knelt to inspect the markings, but as my fingers brushed the stone, a chill washed over me. It felt as though the forest was alive, watching my every move. Suddenly, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves in a frenzied dance. The atmosphere shifted, and an oppressive weight settled over the clearing. I stood, unnerved but determined. I had come seeking adventure, and I would not turn back now. Yet, in the back of my mind, the growing sense of dread lingered. As dusk began to blanket the forest, I heard whispers, soft, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to emanate from the trees themselves. I brushed it off as my imagination playing tricks on me, but the sensation of being watched intensified. Shadows danced around me, and I felt a primal fear gripping my heart. It was time to leave. I retraced my steps, but the forest had changed. The paths I had followed were now foreign and twisted, leading me deeper into the heart of the grove. Panic surged within me as I realized I was lost. The trees loomed overhead, their crooked forms contorting into grotesque shapes, mocking my predicament. Every rustle of leaves sent shivers down my spine, and I could swear I heard my name being called, echoing through the darkness. I stumbled forward, desperate to find my way out, but the forest seemed to close in around me. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, clawing at my sanity. The Crooked Forest, also known as KRZYWY Loss, is a place that has always been shrouded in mystery, its twisted trees seeming more like eerie sentinels than simple pines. The forest sits on the edge of a small, close-knit village in the north of Poland, where tales of hauntings and strange happenings are woven into everyday life. The villagers live with a quiet respect, and sometimes fear, for the forest, speaking of it only in whispers and warning visitors with age-old legends passed down for generations. For most people who live near the Crooked Forest, the tree's bizarre shape alone would be enough to create an air of mystery. These pines, curving sharply at the base before rising upright toward the sky, appear almost as if they're bowing towards some unseen force. Many locals have accepted the existence of the forest's oddities without question, as if it were simply part of their reality. They say the forest is alive in a way that makes outsiders uncomfortable. Some people claim to have seen shadows lurking just beyond the tree line at night, while others speak of strange noises echoing through the trees after dark, low murmurs almost like whispered conversations or soft, rhythmic sounds as though someone were walking in circles just out of sight. Yet the true mystery of the forest lies deeper than the shape of its trees. The forest seems to have an almost sentient quality, as though it can sense those who enter and gauge their intentions. This is something Arthur, our narrator, didn't realize when he first set foot there. Arthur, a young archaeologist and self-proclaimed adventurer, always laughed off ghost stories and local legends as superstitions. He believed that everything could be explained through science, and that nothing truly supernatural existed in the world. With his energetic confidence, he saw himself as invincible, chasing every mystery, every thrill, without a second thought. His daring nature was part of what made him a talented archaeologist. He was bold, persistent, and unafraid of venturing into places most people would avoid. When Arthur first arrived in the village near the Crooked Forest, he was a bit of a sensation. The locals, both curious and skeptical, watched him with interest. Some of the older villagers tried to warn him, reminding him that the forest doesn't like strangers. Yet, Arthur dismissed their words as nothing more than folklore, tales meant to keep children from wandering too far into the woods. To him, the forest was a puzzle to solve, a strange natural phenomenon he could explore and perhaps even explain. He didn't believe in curses or spirits, he believed in evidence and reason. However, his enthusiasm masked a deeper sense of insecurity. Arthur was young and felt he still had a lot to prove in his field. While he had been successful in the past, this new expedition was a chance to further establish his reputation and make his name in the archaeological world. A part of him wanted the thrill of discovery, the validation that came from finding something extraordinary, something that might even hint at the supernatural, despite his own doubts. He was caught between skepticism and the desire to experience something truly unexplainable. This attitude, combined with his ambition, set him on a path that would ultimately lead him into danger. Despite his knowledge of history and folklore, he underestimated the power of belief, how it can seep into a place, especially one as strange as the Crooked Forest. Arthur wasn't prepared to face the kind of darkness that went beyond human understanding. When he finally entered the forest, he was struck not by its beauty, but by its strange, oppressive atmosphere. The air felt heavy, thicker than outside the tree line, and there was an unnatural stillness that seemed to swallow every sound he made. Arthur noticed right away how silent everything was, the usual sounds of nature completely absent. It was as though the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for him to make the next move. As he moved deeper into the forest, he felt an eerie sense of being watched. He told himself it was just nerves, the product of stories he'd brushed off as nonsense. But the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each step he took. Shadows seemed to shift around him, and every so often, he thought he heard faint whispers. He'd stop, flashlight in hand, only to find himself alone among the twisted trees. Yet, in those moments, he began to doubt his initial confidence. Arthur's personality starts to shift as he realizes the forest's true nature. His usual bravado is tempered by a growing sense of dread, as though he's slowly coming to understand that he's out of his depth. The whispers he heard earlier start to sound like voices, murmuring in a language he can't understand but feels in his bones. The shadows begin to coalesce into forms that are neither fully human nor entirely spectral, strange figures that seem to flicker between reality and some other realm. As the night drags on, Arthur's sense of self-assuredness crumbles. He begins to remember the villagers' warnings, the fearful looks they'd given him when he'd first announced his intentions to explore the Crooked Forest. His mind races, questioning every decision that led him here. He starts to feel the weight of the forest's history pressing down on him, as though it's filled with the memories of those who dared to enter before him, and perhaps never returned. The Crooked Forest has claimed many before, though Arthur has no way of knowing how true this is. For centuries, locals have whispered of people who wandered in and vanished, leaving behind nothing but faint trails and a sense of loss that hangs in the air. The forest, it seems, is less a place and more a presence, one that doesn't take kindly to intrusions, especially by those who come without respect. In these moments, Arthur is forced to confront parts of himself he'd rather ignore. His drive to prove himself, his dismissive attitude toward the unknown, his thirst for recognition. All these traits have led him into a place where none of them matter. In the Crooked Forest, only humility and a willingness to listen seem to hold any power. But whether he'll learn this in time is uncertain, as the shadows around him continue to close in, and the voices grow louder, calling his name with a chilling familiarity. The deeper I wandered into the Crooked Forest, the more the atmosphere shifted from eerie to menacing. The light from my flashlight struggled against the thick darkness, flickering over the contorted trees that loomed around me. Their bent trunks seemed to lean in, as if the forest itself were alive, watching my every move. It was as if each tree harbored secrets that it was unwilling to share, leaving me with a profound sense of unease. At first, I tried to reassure myself. The twisted trees were an anomaly, a natural curiosity shaped by the elements over time. I thought back to the local stories, urban legends, surely. I had never been one to believe in ghosts or spirits. But the more I pressed on, the more those stories gnawed at the edges of my thoughts. Whispers echoed through the air, just beyond the reach of my understanding. At times, I thought I heard my name carried on the wind, but I quickly dismissed it as the play of my mind in such a strange place. As I navigated the narrow paths formed by the trees, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being guided, or perhaps herded, deeper into the heart of the forest. I stumbled upon an area where the trees were even more tightly clustered, their twisted forms creating a barrier that seemed to seal me off from the outside world. It felt wrong. My instincts screamed for me to turn back, but a part of me, the part driven by an insatiable thirst for adventure, pushed me forward. Suddenly, I heard a snap, a distinct crack of a twig breaking underfoot. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. My eyes darted around, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. Was someone else here? The sensation of being watched intensified, and I could feel the hair on the back of my neck rise. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" My voice felt small and insignificant against the vastness of the forest. Silence swallowed my words, but just as I was about to convince myself it was all in my head, I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye. A shadow flitted between the trees, too quick and too low for me to make out what it was. Panic surged through me, and I took a step back, my mind racing. Had I intruded on something I shouldn't have? Was there someone else in this cursed place? Despite the mounting fear, I pressed on, driven by a need to confront whatever was lurking in the shadows. As I pushed through the tightly packed trees, I stumbled into a small clearing. In the center stood a gnarled tree, older and more twisted than the others, its bark blackened and scarred as if it had witnessed unspeakable horrors. At its base lay remnants of what looked like an old campfire, the stones blackened and crumbling. I knelt beside it, feeling an inexplicable connection to this spot, a sense of foreboding that chilled me to my core. Then, out of nowhere, I felt a cold gust of wind sweep through the clearing, rustling the leaves and carrying with it a cacophony of whispers. My heart raced as I strained to hear the words. They were indistinct at first, but gradually a single phrase began to crystallize, repeating over and over. "Get out! Get out!" The urgency in those whispers clawed at my mind, and I realized they were not meant for me alone. They were a warning. I leaped to my feet, heart pounding, and glanced around for an escape. Just as I turned to leave the clearing, I caught sight of something. A figure emerging from the shadows, a silhouette barely illuminated by my flickering flashlight. It was human-shaped, but its features were obscured by darkness, almost blending into the trees themselves. I froze, the primal instinct to flee battling with my curiosity. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice echoing unnaturally in the stillness. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it took a step closer, and I could feel the air thicken with a tension I couldn't explain. I took a shaky step back, and suddenly the ground beneath me shifted. Roots erupted from the earth, snaking toward me like living serpents, pulling me down as if the forest itself sought to claim me. I fell, scrambling to get free, but the roots wrapped around my legs, tightening with a relentless grip. Panic surged through me as I struggled against the entangling roots, my heart racing in terror. I glanced back up at the figure, whose outline was now clearer, a face obscured by a hood, shadowed and enigmatic. It pointed a long, bony finger at me, and the whispers grew louder, crescendoing into a deafening roar of voices crying out in unison. "Get out!" In that moment, something primal awakened in me, and I knew I had to escape. With a surge of adrenaline, I kicked against the roots, breaking their hold just long enough to scramble back to my feet. I bolted, driven by fear and the desperate need to escape whatever malevolent force was chasing me through the trees. The whispers followed, echoing in my ears, urging me to flee as I ran blindly through the forest, my only goal to find my way back to safety before it was too late. As I ran through the crooked forest, my heart pounding in my chest, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't just escaping a singular threat, but was caught in a web of mysteries that extended far beyond my initial foray into this peculiar landscape. The air felt thick with secrets, and as I navigated the twisted trunks, I began to recall snippets of the locals' tales, stories of explorers who had vanished, strange occurrences, and whispers of curses linked to the forest. These tales now loomed large in my mind, intertwining with my own experience. One subplot that emerged was the legend of the forest's guardian, a specter said to protect the trees and the secrets they held. Some claimed this guardian was a benevolent spirit, while others insisted it was a vengeful wraith, angered by those who intruded upon its domain. I had heard about it from a weathered old man in the village near the forest. "The crooked forest doesn't take kindly to trespassers," he had warned, his eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and reverence. "You may find more than you bargained for within its depths." As I ran, the fear of the forest's guardian gnawed at me. Was it this entity that had ensnared me? Was it protecting the forest from me, or was it something darker? The ambiguity of the tales unsettled me. The lines between guardian and tormentor blurred. I thought back to the figure I had seen in the clearing, the hooded figure that had appeared as if summoned by the forest itself. Was it the guardian, or was it a manifestation of the forest's wrath? In my desperate flight, I also recalled the stories of other adventurers who had entered the crooked forest but never returned. Each tale I remembered became a new thread in the complex tapestry of fear that surrounded me. There was the young couple who had ventured in to take photographs, only to be found days later wandering in circles, unable to recall how they got there. Then there was the solo hiker who claimed to have encountered a tree that whispered his name, and though he emerged alive, he was never the same afterward, his eyes clouded with a shadow that spoke of horrors untold. Each story felt like a warning echoing in my mind, underscoring the potential consequences of my intrusion. As I navigated the forest, I encountered remnants of past explorers, broken tents, discarded gear, and crumbling campfires, each a silent testament to the folly of underestimating this place. I wondered if I would join their ranks, a cautionary tale for future adventurers. The complexity of these narratives weighed on me, fueling my fear and uncertainty. I was no longer just a curious explorer. I had become a part of this eerie folklore, a character in a story that had been written long before my arrival. Adding to my turmoil was the realization that my journey into the forest had been a quest for more than just adventure. It had been an escape from my own reality. Back home, I was grappling with the expectations of a mundane life, the pressure to settle down and conform to societal norms. My decision to explore the crooked forest was born out of a desire to break free from that suffocating routine. Now, however, it felt as if I had traded one form of entrapment for another. This forest was not the liberating adventure I had imagined. As I stumbled through the trees, I began to question my motivations. Had I come here seeking answers, or had I simply been chasing the thrill of the unknown? The deeper I delved into this twisted wood, the more it felt like a manifestation of my own internal struggles. My thoughts spiraled, and I recognized that perhaps the forest was not the only thing I needed to escape. I was running from my own fears, fear of commitment, fear of failure, and most importantly, fear of facing my own limitations. The complexity of my journey was further complicated by my mounting exhaustion. I had been running for what felt like hours, adrenaline pumping through my veins, but I knew I couldn't keep this up forever. I had to find a way out before the darkness consumed me completely. Yet, even as fatigue set in, I couldn't help but ponder what I would say if I ever escaped this place. Would I tell my friends the truth, or would I spin a tale that captured their imaginations, omitting the fear that had gripped me? Would I become another storyteller, a voice warning against the allure of the crooked forest? Then out of the shadows, I caught another glimpse of movement, a flicker at the edge of my vision. Panic rose within me once again, and I hesitated, torn between my instinct to flee and the desperate need for clarity. This forest was revealing itself to be a mirror reflecting my own turmoil, a landscape where my fears and doubts manifested in physical form. In that moment, I realized I was not just running from the forest or the guardian I had imagined. I was running from myself. I had to confront my fears, confront the reality that had led me here. As I caught my breath against a gnarled tree, I felt a resolve solidify within me. I would face whatever lay ahead, whether it was the forest's guardian or the shadows of my own psyche. The complexity of my journey was not merely about escaping the crooked forest. It was about reclaiming my life and the choices that shaped it. And so, I steeled myself for whatever was to come, prepared to confront the darkness both around me and within. The moment I paused to catch my breath against that gnarled tree, I felt the forest shift around me, as if it were inhaling and exhaling with a life of its own. Shadows flickered in the corners of my vision, teasing me with hints of movement that I couldn't fully comprehend. It was then that the realization struck me like a thunderclap. This was no ordinary forest. The crooked forest was alive, and it knew I was here. The air thickened, charged with an electric energy that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. I could hear the faint rustling of leaves, almost as if they were whispering secrets. My heart raced, not only from fear but from the intoxicating thrill of the unknown. I had come here seeking adventure, but what I found was a dark tapestry woven with tension, history, and something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Just as I was about to turn back, convinced that I had already pushed my luck too far, I heard it, a low, haunting hum emanating from deeper within the forest. It was melodic yet dissonant, a sound that seemed to vibrate through my bones. I hesitated, the urge to flee battling with an inexplicable compulsion to follow. It was as if the forest itself was calling to me, beckoning me closer with its siren song. In that pivotal moment, I made a choice. I turned away from the path I had been desperately carving back towards safety, and instead moved toward the sound, stepping deeper into the crooked forest. Each step felt heavy with consequence, and I knew I was crossing a threshold from which I might not return. The thrill of exploration mingled with a growing sense of dread, a cocktail of emotions that made my head spin. The trees closed in around me, their crooked trunks twisting skyward, branches intertwining like the fingers of ancient giants. As I pressed on, the hum grew louder, pulsing in rhythm with my racing heart. It was beautiful and terrifying, a melody that spoke of both promise and peril. The forest was revealing its secrets, and I was a willing participant in this dark symphony. After what felt like an eternity, I arrived at a clearing bathed in an ethereal glow. Moonlight streamed through the canopy, illuminating a circle of impossibly twisted trees, their roots snaking across the ground like gnarled fingers. In the center stood a lone, ancient oak, its trunk wider than I could span with my arms. This was not just any tree. It felt sacred, a sentinel of the forest's darkest mysteries. And then I saw it, the figure. A shadow moved in the periphery, just at the edge of the clearing. My breath hitched in my throat. It was the same hooded figure I had glimpsed earlier, standing motionless, watching me with an intensity that sent chills racing down my spine. It was then I understood. This was the guardian of the forest, the one the locals had warned me about. "Who dares enter my domain?" The figure's voice echoed, low and resonant, reverberating off the trees like a roll of thunder. There was power in those words, a command that resonated deep within me. I felt the urge to run, to flee back to the perceived safety of the path, but my feet felt glued to the ground, anchored by a force I couldn't comprehend. I'm just exploring," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean any harm." "Exploration without respect leads to consequences," the guardian replied, stepping into the light. Its form was shrouded in darkness, the hood obscuring its features, but I could feel its gaze piercing into my soul. "You tread on sacred ground, where the balance of nature is upheld. What you seek is not merely adventure, it is understanding." The weight of those words settled heavily upon me. I realized then that I had come into this forest seeking thrill and escapism, yet I had not considered the sanctity of the place I had intruded upon. I was not just a visitor. I was an interloper, a blundering fool disregarding the ancient wisdom this land held. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I didn't know. I didn't mean to offend you or the forest." The figure regarded me silently for a long moment. In that space, I could feel the heartbeat of the forest, the slow and steady pulse that resonated with every living thing. The guardian seemed to absorb my fear, my regret, and then it spoke again, this time softer, almost tenderly. "Knowledge is a double-edged sword," it said. "To know the truth of this forest is to bear the burden of its secrets. Will you accept that weight?" I hesitated, contemplating the path that lay before me. The thrill of adventure still coursed through my veins, but it was tempered now by an awareness of the responsibility that came with it. I thought of the stories I had heard, the explorers who had lost their way, the couple forever trapped in the forest's embrace. Would I be just another name added to their ranks, or could I turn this encounter into something transformative? "I want to learn," I said finally, my voice steadier now. "I want to understand." The guardian nodded, and I felt a shift in the atmosphere around me, as if the forest itself had acknowledged my resolve. "Then let the journey begin," it intoned. "But be warned, not all truths are easy to bear, and the path forward will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine." With those words, the guardian extended a hand, revealing a small, intricately carved talisman resting in its palm, a symbol of the forest's power and knowledge. As I reached out to take it, I felt a surge of energy course through me, a connection forged between the essence of the forest and my own spirit. In that moment, the turning point crystallized. I was no longer just a lost adventurer. I was now a part of something much larger than myself. The crooked forest was not just a destination. It was a living entity, filled with wisdom and mysteries that awaited my discovery. I understood then that this journey would not just change the course of my adventure, but would alter the very fabric of who I was. With the talisman clutched in my hand, I took a deep breath and prepared to embrace the unknown, ready to confront whatever trials awaited me in the depths of the crooked forest. This was not merely an exploration. It was a reckoning, a chance to reconcile my past with the present, and ultimately, to find a way back to myself. The journey that began in the crooked forest was one filled with unexpected twists and turns, much like the gnarled trees that surrounded me. As I stood there, talisman in hand, I felt an overwhelming sense of urgency mixed with excitement. Little did I know that my decision to engage with the forest's mysteries would set off a chain of events far beyond my control. Initially, the impact of my actions felt exhilarating. The talisman seemed to pulse with energy, and the forest responded to my presence. Each step I took brought forth whispers of the past, and I could almost hear the echoes of those who had walked these paths before me. I felt a sense of purpose. I was no longer an outsider. I had been chosen to uncover the secrets that lay hidden beneath the canopy. However, as the days turned into weeks, the consequences of my involvement began to reveal themselves. I had entered the forest seeking knowledge, but with that knowledge came a weight that pressed heavily on my shoulders. The whispers I once found enchanting grew louder, becoming demands rather than gentle nudges. The deeper I delved into the forest's history, the more I learned of its dark past, of explorers who had vanished without a trace, of villagers who had spoken of an ancient curse, and of the guardian who held dominion over the land. With each revelation, I became acutely aware of the burden I had assumed. The forest was not merely a beautiful landscape. It was a living entity, one that demanded respect and understanding. I felt a growing disconnect from my former self, a boy who sought adventure without thinking of the implications. My nights were plagued with vivid dreams, visions of the forest's past intertwining with my own fears. In these dreams, the guardian appeared, its voice echoing in my mind. Knowledge is a double-edged sword. My friends and colleagues, initially supportive of my expedition, began to notice a change in me. I had always been the carefree adventurer, the one who could lighten the mood with a joke or a story from my travels. Now, I was withdrawn, distracted by thoughts of the crooked forest. Conversations felt like burdens, and laughter felt alien to me. I could sense their concern, but I couldn't explain the depth of what I was experiencing. They saw me retreating into myself, and it scared them. One night, as I sat by a campfire with a couple of friends who had come to check on me, the atmosphere shifted. They were trying to coax me out of my shell, telling tales of their own adventures, but all I could think about was the forest. The talisman hung heavy around my neck, a constant reminder of my obligation. Unable to contain myself, I blurted out, "You don't understand. The forest needs us. There's so much to learn, but it's not safe for everyone. I can't just leave it." The silence that followed was deafening. My friends exchanged uneasy glances, their laughter fading into nervous chuckles. I realized then that they were worried about my mental state. To them, I was spiraling into an obsession that bordered on madness. "Arthur, you're scaring us," one of them finally said. "Maybe it's time to leave the forest behind." Their words cut deeper than any physical wound. I had come to cherish their friendship, and to hear that I was alarming them felt like a betrayal of my own purpose. Yet, in that moment, I felt torn between two worlds: the familiar safety of my old life and the harrowing depths of the crooked forest that called to me so intensely. As I struggled to reconcile these conflicting emotions, the consequences of my actions began to manifest in ways I hadn't anticipated. One morning, I awoke to find the forest unusually quiet. The vibrant sounds that typically filled the air, the rustling of leaves, the chatter of birds, were absent. A heaviness hung over the land, and a sense of foreboding settled in my chest. Wandering through the woods, I began to notice changes in the environment. The once vibrant greens of the trees appeared dulled, and shadows lengthened unnaturally. It felt as if the forest was responding to my turmoil, reflecting my internal struggle. The talisman grew colder against my skin, a stark contrast to the warmth it had radiated before. I could no longer feel the forest's pulse. Instead, I felt a deep void where connection had once flourished. Panic rose within me as I realized that the guardian's warning about the weight of knowledge was not merely a metaphor. My engagement with the forest had consequences that extended beyond my understanding. It affected the very balance of nature itself. The stories of vanished explorers began to haunt my thoughts. What if I was destined to become another cautionary tale? What if my quest for knowledge led to dire repercussions not just for me, but for the forest itself? The night brought no solace. Sleep eluded me, and I found myself wandering the woods in a daze, seeking answers but only finding shadows. It was during one of these restless nights that I stumbled upon a clearing where the ancient oak stood tall and imposing. The guardian emerged from the darkness, its presence both terrifying and comforting. "You have awakened the forest," it said, its voice resonating like thunder. "But knowledge without harmony breeds chaos. You must choose. Will you seek to control the forest, or will you learn to coexist with it?" The weight of its words struck me like a blow. In my quest for understanding, I had forgotten the fundamental truth. Knowledge and respect must go hand in hand. I had acted as if I could extract secrets without repercussions, as if the forest was merely a backdrop for my adventures rather than a living entity deserving of reverence. As I grappled with this realization, the guardian extended its hand, palm up, revealing a small, glimmering seed. This is the heart of the forest. Nurture it, and it shall restore the balance you have disturbed. But remember, Arthur, the path you choose will forever alter your fate. I stared at the seed, feeling its power thrumming beneath my fingertips. The weight of my decisions pressed upon me, a tangible force that demanded my utmost sincerity. With the seed cradled in my hand, I understood that my journey had transformed from one of mere exploration to a profound responsibility. I had the potential to heal the rift I had inadvertently caused. The consequences of my actions were far-reaching, but they did not have to end in despair. The choice was mine to make, to reclaim my connection to the crooked forest, to nurture its spirit, and to honor the knowledge I had gained. In that moment of clarity, I resolved to face the challenges ahead with courage and humility, understanding that true adventure lay not in seeking dominion over the unknown, but in embracing the symbiotic relationship between myself and the world around me. As dawn broke, casting golden rays through the trees, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to embark on a path of growth, understanding, and reconciliation, determined to honor the forest and its guardian. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I now possessed the key to restore the balance, a promise to the crooked forest and to myself. In the wake of the guardian's revelation, I stood at a crossroads, one path leading deeper into the forest, where the whispers of knowledge beckoned, and the other leading back to the safety of my familiar world. With the talisman now hanging heavy against my chest and the seed cradled in my palm, I felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me like the canopy overhead. This was not merely a choice about my own journey. It was about the very essence of the crooked forest itself. As dawn broke, I took my first steps toward a new understanding. The once ominous trees now felt welcoming, their gnarled branches twisting into inviting shapes. I could feel the forest shifting around me, a living entity responding to my renewed intentions. The seed pulsed softly, as if urging me forward. I knew I needed to nurture this essence, to plant it in the heart of the forest and allow it to flourish. But I also understood that this process required more than just physical action. It called for a profound change within me. I spent the following days immersed in the rhythms of the forest, listening intently to its sounds and observing its life cycles. My previous obsession with knowledge transformed into a thirst for understanding, an understanding that embraced both the seen and the unseen, the tangible and the spiritual. I began to seek counsel from the forest itself. During quiet moments, I would close my eyes and attune my senses to the whispers in the wind, the rustling leaves, and the distant call of creatures hidden from sight. I realized that every part of the ecosystem held lessons. The way the trees intertwined their roots, sharing nutrients and shelter, taught me about community. The resilient wildflowers that bloomed in the harshest conditions showed me the beauty of perseverance. The streams that wound their way through the forest reminded me of the importance of adaptability. As I absorbed these teachings, I began to reflect on my own life, recognizing the parallels between my struggles and those of the natural world around me. In the evenings, I would return to my campfire, where I often found my friends waiting for me. Their concern had been palpable since my obsession began to overshadow our adventures. I could see it in their eyes, the unease that came with witnessing my transformation. But now, I felt compelled to share my experiences with them. I gathered them around the fire one night and spoke of the guardian's warning, the seed's significance, and my commitment to restoring balance to the crooked forest. At first, they listened with skepticism, unsure of how to process my new perspective. But as I spoke, I could see the spark of intrigue ignite in their expressions. My story resonated with them, and I could feel the walls of doubt begin to crumble. "We want to support you, Arthur," one of my friends said. "But how can we help?" This question ignited a fire within me. I realized that my journey wasn't one I had to undertake alone. I could invite them to participate in this process of growth and healing. Together, we could nurture the seed and, in turn, nurture our bond. So, I proposed a plan. We would create a space for communal work, where we could not only care for the forest, but also strengthen our friendships and deepen our understanding of the land. Over the next few weeks, we transformed our camp into a hub of activity. We dedicated ourselves to restoring areas of the forest that had suffered from neglect. Armed with knowledge gleaned from my interactions with the forest, I shared techniques for planting and nurturing the seedling. We mapped out patches where we could plant native species, making sure to respect the ecosystem's delicate balance. As we worked together, I felt a sense of unity forming. No longer did I feel isolated in my journey. The forest's energy surged through us, binding us in a shared purpose. Our efforts bore fruit quickly. As we planted and tended to the young trees and wildflowers, I watched the forest begin to thrive once more. The colors became vibrant, the sounds more harmonious, and the atmosphere lighter. The presence of the guardian seemed to bless our work, and I could feel its watchful eyes observing us with approval. Each small victory, a sprouting seed, a newly formed bud, became a testament to our collective strength and resilience. In these moments, I began to uncover my own capacity for leadership. The lessons of the forest mirrored my journey, and I found myself stepping into a role I had never imagined for myself. I became a guide, not only for my friends, but for myself. As I led them in nurturing the forest, I also learned to nurture my own spirit. However, growth is rarely linear, and challenges emerged along the way. There were days when frustration set in, moments when the task felt insurmountable, and I found myself doubting whether we could truly make a difference. During one particularly exhausting day, as we cleared debris from a section of the forest, I caught a glimpse of my old self, a man overwhelmed by the enormity of it all. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of doubt creeping into my mind. But in those moments, my friends rallied around me. They reminded me of the progress we had made, of the beauty we had restored. They shared stories of their own struggles and triumphs, grounding me in the importance of our mission. Together, we weathered the storms of uncertainty, finding strength in our camaraderie. It was during one of these tough times that I learned the most valuable lesson of all. True growth comes from vulnerability. I had once believed that I needed to project strength and certainty to lead, but now I understood that admitting my fears and doubts made me a better leader. By opening up to my friends, I not only fostered deeper connections, but also encouraged them to embrace their own vulnerabilities. As we continued our work, the crooked forest responded. The energy shifted, wildlife began to return, and the air became charged with a palpable sense of life. It was as if the forest was awakening from a long slumber, and we were its catalysts. Each day brought new discoveries, animal tracks, nests hidden in the foliage, and the laughter of friends echoing through the trees. Eventually, the moment arrived when I knew it was time to plant the seed, the heart of the forest. Together, we found a sacred spot beneath the ancient oak, its branches stretched wide as if embracing us all. With great reverence, I lowered the seed into the rich soil, feeling the connection between it and the land deepen. We formed a circle around it, hands joined, and I led us in a pledge to protect and honor the forest and all its secrets. In that moment, as the seed nestled into its new home, I felt a profound shift within myself. I had embraced the lessons of the forest, learned to listen, and transformed my initial quest for knowledge into a commitment to stewardship. My friends and I were now part of a greater narrative, a narrative of growth, healing, and interconnectedness. As we stood there, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves above, and I could almost hear the forest whispering its gratitude. I realized that my journey had come full circle. The boy who had entered the crooked forest, driven by ambition and curiosity, had evolved into a man committed to preserving the very essence of life itself. Together, we had overcome the challenges, celebrated the victories, and forged bonds that would withstand the test of time. The crooked forest had transformed me, and I vowed never to forget the lessons it had taught me. I was no longer just an adventurer. I was a guardian, and my heart beat in time with the pulse of the forest. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an ethereal glow over the crooked forest, I sensed that the time for reckoning was fast approaching. The events of the past few weeks had woven an intricate tapestry of growth, unity, and purpose, but beneath that tapestry lay the tension of an impending climax that loomed over us like the shadows of the trees. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for the culmination of our efforts. The air was thick with anticipation. I could feel it in my bones, a tingling sensation that surged through me every time I stepped into the heart of the forest. My friends had become my allies, and together, we had transformed from mere visitors into stewards of this land. Yet, as our connection deepened, so too did the awareness of the delicate balance we were trying to restore. It was no longer just about the seed or the forest. It was about something far more significant, the essence of life itself. In preparation for what lay ahead, I spent hours reflecting on the Guardian's teachings. Each night, I would sit by the fire, the crackling flames illuminating my thoughts as I delved into the wisdom imparted to me. The guardian's voice echoed in my mind, urging me to remember that the forest was alive and sentient, with its own desires and needs. I had learned that true guardianship meant not just protecting the land, but also understanding its rhythms and respecting its boundaries. I gathered my friends one evening and shared my reflections with them. "The forest is more than a backdrop for our adventures," I said, looking each of them in the eye. "It's a living being, and we need to approach our next steps with reverence. The time has come to prepare ourselves, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually." They nodded, their expressions a mixture of determination and curiosity. I could sense their eagerness to dive deeper into this journey with me. We began to brainstorm ways to honor the forest and its inhabitants, focusing on creating a sacred space for the seed we had planted. It became clear that our next step was not just to wait for the seed to grow, but to nurture the entire ecosystem surrounding it. As we mapped out our preparations, I proposed a series of rituals to help us connect with the land. Each ritual would symbolize our commitment to the forest and our recognition of the intricate web of life that thrived within it. We decided to gather natural materials, twigs, stones, and leaves, each representing an element of the forest. Together, we would create a physical manifestation of our intentions, a shrine to honor the seed and the guardian. The days leading up to the climax were filled with a blend of hard work and creative energy. We scoured the forest for materials, gathering everything from smooth river stones to vibrant moss. Each piece we collected carried a story, a connection to the land that we were beginning to understand more profoundly. As we worked together, our camaraderie deepened, and the forest seemed to respond, its vibrant energy wrapping around us like an embrace. On the day of the ritual, the forest felt charged with anticipation. I could sense the trees leaning in, their gnarled branches creating a natural cathedral around us. My friends and I had chosen a clearing bathed in dappled sunlight, where the ground was soft and welcoming. We arranged the stones and twigs in a circle, creating a sacred space that would honor the seed and the guardian. As we stood in the clearing, I felt the weight of the moment settle upon us. It was time to invite the guardian into our ceremony. I closed my eyes and focused on the energy of the forest, channeling the respect I had developed over the weeks. With a deep breath, I opened my eyes and addressed my friends. "We stand here today as guardians of the crooked forest, united in our purpose. Let us honor the guardian who has watched over this land for centuries and invited into our gathering." One by one, we took turns sharing our intentions and hopes for the forest. We spoke of our commitment to protect it, to learn from it, and to ensure that the magic of the crooked forest continued to thrive. As I listened to my friends, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. Their sincerity and passion echoed my own, and I knew we were forging a bond that would transcend this moment. As the sun reached its zenith, I led us in a chant, a simple yet powerful invocation to the guardian. We joined our voices, harmonizing our intentions as we raised our arms toward the sky. I felt the energy of the forest respond, a gentle rustling of leaves as if the trees were swaying in rhythm with our call. At that moment, I sensed a shift in the air. The temperature dropped slightly, and the sunlight dimmed as a shadow passed over the clearing. My heart raced as I turned, half expecting to see the guardian emerge from the trees. But there was only silence, a charged stillness that felt alive with anticipation. The atmosphere was electric, thick with the promise of what was to come. It was in that moment of quiet before the storm that I felt the true weight of our actions. This was no longer just a simple quest for knowledge or adventure. We were on the brink of a transformation, a transition from being mere visitors in the crooked forest to becoming its true stewards. The stakes had never been higher, and I realized that we were not just preparing for a climax in our journey. We were preparing to confront the very essence of the forest itself. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the clearing, I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the energy of the moment. This was our time. The culmination of our efforts, our connection, and our commitment to the crooked forest was about to unfold. I felt a sense of calm wash over me, and with my friends by my side, I knew we were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the coming moments, we would stand united against the unknown, embracing the magic and mystery of the crooked forest. The time had come to witness the unfolding of a story far greater than any of us had anticipated. Together, we would forge our path, guided by the whispers of the forest and the spirit of the guardian that watched over us all. The moment had arrived, and as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting an amber glow over the crooked forest. I felt the air thickening with anticipation. My heart raced, each beat echoing the connection I had forged with this enchanted land. We had prepared ourselves through rituals and shared intentions, and now it was time to confront the climax of our journey. The clearing felt alive, pulsating with energy as we gathered in a circle around the shrine we had created. Each element we had gathered, a smooth stone, a twisted branch, a handful of vibrant moss, seemed to shimmer in the fading light, each carrying its own story, its own essence. We stood together, hand in hand, a collective heartbeat united in purpose. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the moment. "We're here to honor the guardian of the crooked forest," I said, my voice steady yet tinged with excitement. "To invite it into our circle and ask for guidance as we take on the responsibility of guardianship." As I spoke, the atmosphere shifted again. The trees seemed to sway slightly, as if whispering secrets to one another. A gentle breeze danced through the clearing, sending shivers down my spine. It felt as though the forest itself was responding to our call, urging us forward. "Let's remember our intentions," I encouraged my friends, locking eyes with each of them. "This isn't just about us. It's about the forest, the guardian, and the balance of life that we are part of." One by one, my friends spoke, their words weaving together a tapestry of hopes and commitments. I listened intently, my heart swelling with pride and gratitude for their passion. We were a unified force now, a band of guardians ready to protect the legacy of the crooked forest. Then, as the last echoes of their voices faded into the air, I felt a sudden chill that swept through the clearing, bringing with it an uncanny silence. I looked around, and the light seemed to dim further, casting elongated shadows across the ground. It was a strange sensation, as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for something momentous to occur. Without warning, the ground beneath us trembled, a deep rumble that reverberated through the earth. My heart raced as I steadied myself, instinctively gripping the hands of my friends. Their eyes mirrored my own, wide with surprise and fear. What was happening? Had we awakened something ancient? Then, from the depths of the forest, a figure emerged, silhouetted against the darkening woods. It was tall and imposing, with a twisted form that mirrored the trees surrounding us. The guardian of the crooked forest had come to answer our call. It stood before us, its presence both majestic and terrifying. The air crackled with energy as it regarded us with eyes that glowed like embers, radiating a profound wisdom. I could feel the weight of its gaze, as if it were assessing our intentions, weighing our worthiness to become its stewards. In that moment, I understood the significance of our actions. This was not merely a ritual, we were being tested. The guardian was not a benign spirit, but a fierce protector of its realm, demanding respect and understanding. I felt a surge of determination rise within me. We were here to prove our commitment, to show that we were ready to carry the mantle of guardianship. I stepped forward, feeling an inexplicable pull toward the guardian. "We come in peace," I proclaimed, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions churning inside me. "We seek to honor the crooked forest and its legacy. We understand the responsibility we bear, and we wish to learn from you." The guardian remained silent for a moment, its form shifting slightly, as if the very essence of the forest flowed through it. Then, with a voice that resonated like the rustling leaves, it replied, "To protect this land is to understand its heart. The crooked forest holds secrets that span centuries, and only those who respect its history can hope to become its guardians." I listened intently, the weight of its words sinking deep into my soul. I felt a sense of urgency wash over me, urging me to prove that we were worthy. "We are ready to learn," I asserted, looking at my friends, who nodded in agreement. "Show us the way." The guardian regarded us, its glowing eyes piercing through the darkness. "Then you must face the trials of the forest," it said, its voice echoing through the clearing. "Only by overcoming these challenges will you earn the right to protect what is sacred." As the guardian spoke, a whirlwind of energy enveloped us, swirling leaves and twigs into a vortex of magic. The world around us shifted, transforming into a vibrant landscape that pulsed with life. I felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with fear as we were thrust into the heart of the crooked forest's mysteries. Suddenly, the forest erupted in chaos. Shadows darted between the trees, and I heard the sound of branches snapping, as if unseen creatures were awakening from their slumber. My friends and I huddled together, our hearts pounding in unison. "What do we do?" One of my friends yelled, panic rising in her voice. "Stay together," I shouted, trying to keep my composure. "We need to face whatever challenges come our way as one." The The Guardian's presence loomed over us, a reminder of the stakes at play. We had to confront the trials head-on, embracing the fear and uncertainty that accompanied this moment. It was time to prove our commitment, not just to ourselves, but to the crooked forest and the Guardian that had entrusted us with its secrets. As the chaos unfolded around us, I felt a fire igniting within me. I could not let fear dictate my actions. We had come too far to turn back now. With renewed determination, I took a step forward, ready to face whatever trials awaited us in this surreal landscape. The forest had awakened, and so had we. Together, we would confront the unknown, forging our path through the heart of the crooked forest and embracing the challenges that lay ahead. The time for action was now, and I was prepared to fight for the legacy we sought to protect. The trials we faced in the crooked forest were unlike anything I had ever imagined. Each challenge tested not only our physical strength, but also our mental fortitude and unity as a team. We encountered illusions that warped our perceptions, evoked fears we didn't know we had, and forced us to confront our deepest insecurities. But through every hurdle, we learned invaluable lessons about ourselves and each other. In one particularly harrowing moment, we found ourselves separated by a dense fog that rolled in unexpectedly. The once familiar trees transformed into twisted shadows, obscuring our paths. I could hear the distant cries of my friends, their voices muffled and desperate. The fear of losing them ignited a primal instinct within me. I pressed on, calling their names, my voice echoing through the mist. Through sheer determination and the bond we had forged, we managed to regroup, each of us sharing our experiences and fears. It was during this moment of vulnerability that I realized the true power of our connection. We were not just individuals on a quest, we were a collective force, and together we could overcome any obstacle. This sense of unity became our strength, allowing us to face each subsequent challenge with newfound resilience. As the trials continued, the Guardian observed us from the shadows, its fiery eyes ever watchful. We were acutely aware of its presence, a reminder that our actions held weight and significance. Every time we faltered, a flash of its glow would flicker in the distance, urging us to rise again. This became a driving force, pushing us to dig deeper within ourselves and summon the courage to face whatever lay ahead. After what felt like an eternity, we reached the final trial, a breathtaking clearing bathed in ethereal light. Here, the Guardian finally revealed itself in all its majestic form, embodying the essence of the crooked forest. Its voice resonated through the clearing, commanding yet gentle. You have proven your worth, not just through your strength, but through your unity and compassion. You have learned the true nature of guardianship. It is not about power, but about responsibility and respect for the balance of life. Tears welled in my eyes as I absorbed the weight of its words. We had not only fought for our place as guardians, but had also grown in understanding of what that role truly entailed. We were now entrusted with the responsibility to protect the forest and its mysteries, to honor the legacy of those who came before us. As we made our way back from the heart of the crooked forest, I felt a profound change within me. I was no longer just an adventurer. I was a steward of this ancient land, bound to its fate. I carried with me the lessons of resilience, unity, and respect for nature, knowing that these teachings would guide me in every step of my life moving forward. The experience had changed us all. My friends and I emerged from the forest with a deeper connection, not only to each other, but to the very essence of the world around us. We had learned that every tree, every shadow, and every whisper of wind held a story, a lesson waiting to be uncovered. The crooked forest was no longer just a place of mystery. It was a living testament to the interconnectedness of life. As we stood at the edge of the forest, a sense of peace washed over me. I looked back at the trees that had once felt so foreboding, now bathed in the warm light of the setting sun. We had been transformed by our journey, and I knew we would carry the spirit of the crooked forest with us, wherever we went. In that moment, I made a silent promise to the Guardian and to the land itself. I would honor the wisdom it had shared with me, protect its secrets, and inspire others to see the beauty in nature's wildness. I was ready to embrace my role, to be a true guardian of the crooked forest, and to carry forth the legacy of the earth's sacred places. This was just the beginning of a lifelong adventure, one that I would cherish for all my days. Years have passed since that transformative journey into the crooked forest, but its lessons remain etched in my heart. I've dedicated my life to protecting not just the forest, but all of nature's wonders. My friends and I often return to the forest, each visit deepening our bond with the land and its guardian. We share stories of our experiences, inspiring others to respect and cherish the natural world. The crooked forest stands as a testament to our journey, a living reminder that true guardianship lies in understanding and honoring the delicate balance of life. We are its protectors, forever intertwined. If you've ever felt the call of the wild or wondered about the mysteries hidden in nature, I urge you to listen. The world is full of wonders and stories waiting to be discovered, but remember to tread lightly. Respect the land and its secrets, for every step you take shapes the journey. Share your own experiences and connect with nature in a way that honors its beauty. Join us in advocating for the protection of our forests and the stories they hold. Click to explore more tales of adventure and the incredible lessons nature has to offer.